Hey everyone, this is Jennifer with Planting Science. We're about to really launch into the busiest part of our session. So I thought this one might be a good time to do a real quick, real quick video specifically about mentoring. We have had an amazing influx of new mentors thanks to the support of our current mentors, our society partners, all of that. So if you're one of those new folks that's just joining us for the first time, thank you so much for being here. If you're somebody who's been with us for years and years, thank you for being here. We really are so appreciative of our mentors because obviously that's the lifeblood of what we're doing. So this video is going to kind of go basic. We're going to start with what planting science is. I'm going to show you where you can go to get some examples of what mentoring looks like. I'm going to show you one example that I like, and then I'm going to also give you some tips on how you can set up your profile to ensure that you're getting the invitations from groups that are looking for mentors that you would like to get. And then finally, of course, I'll make sure you know how to find me if you have questions. So just a real quick history. Planting Science was started in 2005. The website that you're looking at now was brought up in 2016 as part of a research initiative that we did. So everything that you see on the website is from 2016 and newer. But there is quite a lot there that you can see in terms of our history. We do have four main goals with this partnership. One of them is really key to our mentors, and that is we're hoping to encourage our students to take a more expansive, less stereotypical view of scientists. We work with middle and high school predominantly. We do have some at the edges there that are a little bit younger and a little bit older. Um, but about probably 90% of them do not have a scientist in their life. And so they don't have a good reference point for what a scientist is and how they act and all of that, aside from what they see in the media. So when we poll our students, often what we hear is they think of Bill Nye the Science Guy when they think of a scientist. And we have a lot of respect for Bill, but he definitely is not the monolith by which, scientists should be viewed. So part of our goal with this is to get scientists kind of conversing with students and give students a chance to see them for the wonderful human beings that they are and to get a glimpse into what their lives are like, and also to kind of see the ways that scientists are just normal people, that they're people that they can relate to. So we really encourage our mentors to be real with their students when they're communicating with them. I'll show you some examples of that. The other thing that we are, of course, very dedicated to, we were created by the Botanical Society of America. And one of the things of which we've been very aware is that in K through 12 education across the board, most of the life science education that they get is animal focused. Of course, they talk about plants with photosynthesis and the usual things that you can only talk about with plants. But when it comes to other areas like tissues and organization and things like that, where plants certainly could be used, they just generally aren't. Teachers are more comfortable talking about animals, and animals draw students' attention quicker. But they do need to know more about plants. So what we've done is we've defined what we called investigation themes that are little curriculum pieces that they can use to enhance what they're doing in the classroom already, but have a very plant focus. So that helps students hopefully engage with plants better and maybe come to appreciate more how important they are. The other thing is that all of our investigation themes are designed around something called a guided inquiry model. So they all include some introductory activities in the classroom that they may do as a whole group, but then at some point they break into smaller groups and they work independently in these groups of 3 to 5 students to design and carry out an investigation that they choose. And that's where mentoring is so important, because that's when they're going to be doing a lot of conversing, because they're going to be thinking about what question they want to answer, how they want to come at it, what they need, what are some strategies that might work, what do they want to measure. Those are all things that the mentor can be really helpful with helping them talk through. So this is also skills that are the scientific exploration skills and engineering and all of that are really strongly represented in the new next generation science standards. And so it's important that they're practicing this. It's super crucial that they have you. That's what makes it really great. And then, of course, all of our investigation themes that we offer are aligned with the concepts that the states have mandated that students at this level learn. So that makes it useful to teachers. That way they don't have to have a tough time justifying why they're devoting time to it. One other thing you may not necessarily realize is that Planting Science is a service that we offer free to teachers. We have a limited amount of slots per session, but those slots that, teachers that apply, those that participate do not pay to be a part of it. That's super important because it makes us accessible to classrooms across demographics all across the United States. As long as they get their application in early, they can more or less count on participating. All of our curriculum resources are available to teachers at all times. It's only the mentoring that we limit. So good things to keep in mind. So if you're new at this, let me just show you if to get yourself good and comfortable with it. I'm going to go to the dashboard of my logged in account here. This is my sample mentor. I use this for training. I do not mentor with this account. But if you're looking to just get a sense of it, one of the best things you can do is come here to galleries, and you do have to be logged in to see this, by the way. So you want to log in first, then you're going to come here to galleries and go to past projects. As I mentioned, this platform has been around since 2016. So we have that many years, like 7 years worth of stuff in here. Some projects are better than another, but these, looking at what other interactions have gone on between students and their mentors is a good way to kind of get a sense of how it runs. I would suggest coming here and selecting archive from this dropdown, because that's going to filter the list. So all you're seeing are groups that are finished from previous sessions. And I would also encourage you to click on starred. What that does is you'll notice that these all have the little star in the corner. These are all projects that have risen to the top of their particular session for one reason or another. At the end of each session, we do accept nominations for projects of note for on. There's many different criteria. Sometimes it is because they designed a really amazing science exploration. They did a great job of being rigorous with it. Other times it may be because they were very positive in the face of obstacles, or they really connected with their mentor. So there's different reasons why they might have been selected. And our criteria has changed throughout the years. So you're still going to get a spectrum among these, but it's always a good idea to just kind of look at what some of the more ideal projects look like. Now, all of our investigation themes are also listed here off to the side. I'm going to show you up above where you go to find that content. But when since right now we are looking for mentors who can mentor the power of sunlight, which is our photosynthesis and cellular respiration theme, and we're mostly working with high school students. So I'm going to filter by that to give you a list of only high school groups that have used the power of sunlight. And this group here is one that I really like. I just maybe really like their name. I think puns are fun. So Herb Your Enthusiasm is a group from 2018, I believe. And most of the time when you start out, you're not going to have this box. This box is here to explain why they were a star project. So feel free to look this up on your desktop and read that if you're interested. Couple of things to note here. They did change their picture, and students may put their picture here, but you will notice that their profiles do not have a picture. That's on purpose. You can click here to look at the members of the team. One thing I want to point out, this is a little strange because Josh is set here as a liaison, but he was actually the mentor in this case. There are students, of course, and they are only listed by their first name. So they only have silhouettes and they only have their first name. The reason for that is because we have to comply with both COPPA and FERPA regulations to make sure that we're not violating students' privacy. Now, most of our students are over the age of 13, so it really is not as crucial as it might be if they were all middle schoolers. But because we do have some middle schoolers, we just use the same precautions across the board. So we only allow students to use their middle name. They do not use their school account to log in. They're assigned this sort of random login. The email address that is used for their account is a dummy email address that goes nowhere. So all you will ever know about their students is their first name. The PlantingScience staff is a member of every single team. There is also another scientist here, Renee Dale, who is the liaison. Sometimes liaisons do post to the students feed just to introduce themselves usually. But the liaison role is one that's kind of mentor plus. It's you've been a mentor for a while now. You want to invest more. And Renee's job in Mrs. Lotus's class was to sort of moderate all the feeds, and so she was watching all the feeds on a regular basis, just making sure that student posts were appropriate, that they weren't sharing their last names, they weren't posting things they shouldn't be posting, that sort of thing. The other thing that the liaison will do is in the event that the mentor has to step away for some reason, maybe there's a family emergency, maybe there's some research thing going on, or they know they're going to a conference or something, the liaison will step in and post to the students while their mentor is gone. Another thing that might happen if the mentor has to leave, like can't continue, the liaison will then step in and mentor the kids through the end of their project. So it's kind of another layer of support. Um, when you go out to the project here, the first things you're going to see are these info fields. These are fields that the students should be filling in. So the mentor is really not responsible for this at all. It also, you'll notice it trails off, and you may want to read everything they wrote. And I'll just warn you, this group in particular wrote a lot. Most student teams do not write anywhere near this much. But if you want to see the whole message instead of the trail off there, you'll click on info and scroll down and you see the whole message will be here. There's a lot going on here. Their experiment design is fantastic. Their conclusion is crazy long. It's like pages long. That's very unusual. But otherwise, this is pretty much what we expect them to do with it, is to continue to add to their Explorer as they learn new information. They can put more explanation under the research question and their prediction if they need to. The experiment design is where they talk about their materials and their steps. And of course, the conclusion is where they analyze what they found out. One thing that a lot of people do remark on is, especially if you're used to thinking in the steps of a science fair project, is that there's nowhere here for them to report their data. And that's one reason why their conclusion is so long, because they put all their data there. But the reason why there isn't a place for it here is because we expect them to be putting that stuff down in the updates feed. That's what they're sharing with their mentor to get their mentor's thoughts on it. So this is where the magic actually happens. So when you're looking at these and you're trying to get a sense of how the mentor conversation goes, one thing you have to keep in mind is that all of the messages are in reverse chronological order. So if you think of it like a Facebook feed or Twitter, X, whatever you're calling it today, the most recent stuff's going to be at the top, and then you can go back in time as you go down. Same thing here. So if watching people scroll makes you nauseous, you might want to close your eyes for a second, because I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. There's a view older entries at the bottom that you may have to click a couple times to get to the real bottom. So bear with me here. Okay. Okay, so here we are at the bottom. This is the beginning of the project that happened. It started on October 15th when the kids all logged on. Typically, the PlantingScience staff will post a message like this just to remind everyone what's allowed and what's not. Excuse me. Definitely, they can change the project name, as you've seen. They can upload a photo. The things that we do watch for is that students should not be using their last names or any other name that fully identifies them. We also encourage them and our mentors not to use their social media handles. Same thing, mentors, for sharing your research website. It's really kind of discouraged. The kids may find you anyway, and it's fine if they do, but we just kind of, for the sake of just making sure that nobody's got any suspicions that something weird's happening, and discourage our mentors from contacting students outside the platform, even if the students contact them first. And then finally, links to Google or SharePoint documents, spreadsheets, or images. Through the pandemic, since so many classrooms were using Google Classroom or using SharePoint or Dropbox, they really got used to sharing their documents and turning them in that way. So a lot of times they do this, they just don't realize that it's not okay. The reason why it's not okay is because we can click on that link. If we open the document and look at the document details, it will tell us who the author is. And so that way we get their identity again, and we're trying to avoid that. So we really ask them, instead of posting a link to a document, to print it as a PDF and upload it to the file section of their project page. And I'll show you that in just one second. Anyway, notice that the girls immediately introduce themselves. They introduce themselves with just their first names. This is where kids sometimes screw up and say a last name, so we have to go in and edit it. Um, they are encouraged to share stuff that they're interested in. Mentors, you're also encouraged to share things that you're interested in, outside of science. Even, a lot of times kids get very excited if you have a pet. I don't know why that's so exciting, but they think that's great. um, Also, like movies that you're interested in, music you like to listen to, hobbies, that kind of thing. Those are all fair game to share. Obviously, you do not have to share anything that you feel uncomfortable sharing. But also please take time to read through what they say and respond to what they're interested in. Um, Josh here chimed in a little bit later, but then he immediately came on. He introduced himself. Also, please do that. Let them know who you are. He said some of his favorite things about plants. Um, and also, he kind of let them know ahead of time that he's going to check in every few days. If you know that it's going to be like an every other day thing for them, that can help them manage their expectations going forward too. So you can tell them up front, well, I'll probably check in every 2 days, and I'll let you know if I have to be away. Um, he also encouraged them to change their name, which was kind of cool. And so they came up with these really fun puns. That really helped keep it fun for them because he was showing an interest in being funny and coming up with something clever. So if you were to read through this, one thing that you might notice is that his tone is very upbeat with the kids at all times. One thing that's important to remember about mentoring with planting science is that it is supposed to be kind of a relaxed, fun kind of interaction. Your job is not to teach the kids. That's what the teacher is doing. You are not meant to hold them accountable for learning specific things. Again, that's the teacher's role. Your job is really to be kind of a kind, interested adult who's providing encouragement and advice. Um, with that on the table, a couple of things that you want to avoid is when they start to propose like what their question is. So let me see up here. They start to think about what they want to look at. One thing that Josh does here, if you'll notice, she's throwing out some ideas for things they might investigate. But rather than saying, well, if you use glucose, this is going to happen. And if you use different colors of light, this is what's going to happen. He may already know what's probably going to happen. But instead of telling them that, he gives them things to think about. Think about how you're going to measure your glucose. I think that's a good idea, blah, blah, blah. A lot of questions too. Mentors that are really engaging with their students are asking a lot of questions that the kids can think about and respond. Asking kids to articulate their thinking is really a great plan because they're supposed to be doing that anyway. So asking them questions to help them think through it is much preferred over giving them what's going to happen. So make sure you keep that in mind. Throughout this, you can see his tone is very friendly, very encouraging. Um, there are times when our mentors will like suggest ways to make the project more rigorous or to build the quality of it. A lot of times by suggesting they do more replications or use more seeds or whatever. It is completely fine to make those recommendations, but please keep in mind that the students rarely have control over how much materials and space and time is available to them as they're doing this. So if you make a suggestion and they don't take you up on it, don't take that personally. That's largely out of their hands, so try not to be disappointed in them or let them know. One thing you should really never do is scold the kids or come down on them for things. If you feel like they're messing around and not really doing what they should be doing, that should result in a post to the teacher, not a post on your update feed. Let the teacher kind of talk to them. But that happens rarely. Usually the kids that are messing around are just not posting at all. And so that's the other thing to bring to their attention. If it looks like other teams are moving along, but your kids haven't posted, that's something to bring to your teacher's attention too. Anyway, so there's a lot to read here. I'm going to just kind of scroll slowly up so you can see. Anytime they edit those project fields, these will show up. Sometimes they show up a lot, so you might get pages of that. It is perfectly acceptable to give them links to other websites that you think that might be useful. Maybe just avoid sending them directly to yours. They can upload photos. They can't paste them directly into the images, and you can do this too. But the way you include photos is by uploading it to the file section of the page. This group had a lot of photos, and so sometimes when they uploaded a bunch at a time, they came out kind of blocky like this. So it's really hard to see what's going on. So what you do in that case is you would scroll back up. So again, I'm going to scroll up here to the file section and show this here. So this is everything that they uploaded. You can kind of look at the pictures one by one and see what they discovered for each one. There's their lights. I will, in the interest of full disclosure, sometimes when they upload photos, the photos will come out sideways or upside down. I'm not sure why that is. And you can also click on this to download them to see them bigger. This is as big as it will show you on the screen. This group also threw up their final report to Josh, and he looked it over and provided comments. I will warn you, one of the biggest challenges that we run into with students is that they get to the end of the actual data collection portion of their exploration, and then they kind of tend to drop off. The reason for that is because typically at that point, the teacher is asking them to either make a poster or create a presentation or something that they can show to the class. And they get so into that they forget to come back and say goodbye. So that's something we've been hitting more with teachers, trying to remind them to please make sure that students are saying goodbye as they finish up and that they're thanking their mentors. But just be prepared that tends to be, they'll like drift off and then you'll never know what happens. um, if that's happening, if it looks like that's happening, that's another good opportunity to post to the group forum and ask questions like, are we done, what's going on here? And that can sometimes remind the teacher to have them log on and say goodbye. But that's basically how it goes. And so projects like this, past projects, are a great reference point for that. Certainly come here, you can look at references, past projects from any of our investigation themes. And if you're wondering what the investigation themes are made of, you're going to come over here to the resources and notice that investigation themes is here at the bottom. It's for easy locating. You can also find it here under mentor resources, and it's this third block here. There are 9 different investigation themes. Again, they're all based on that guided inquiry model, so they all include some activities, large group activities that the kids do in the classroom with their teacher, and then guidance for them to break off and form their own scientific investigation. You can come here for information on all of them. So their pages look like this. There's a blurb here at the top that will explain a little bit about the point of it and how it's designed. And then there's usually downloadable teacher and student guides that you can take a look at. Now, I want to be very clear here. As a mentor, you do not need to be on top of everything in these guides. Even you don't even have to have a working knowledge of these guides. They're very long. There's a lot of information in them. And there's actually a lot of variation from one thing to the other because they've been developed by different partners. But the mentor tip sheet, this is useful. So if you click on that, it will download as a PDF. You want to click here to see it. And it just shows the purpose of it. It talks a little bit about what's going on, what are the questions that they're asking. Here are some things that you can think about and anticipate for your students. So this does a really nice job of giving you an overview of what they're going to be talking about, things that kids might run into that you should be thinking about. So really, if you feel like you can mostly understand what's going on here, you should feel pretty confident that you can mentor that theme. And that's important because the more themes that you're willing to mark, that you're willing to mentor for, the more likely you are to be invited. And so when you go to your dashboard, okay, so this is what it'll look like when you log in. Down here at the bottom, there will be any groups that you have accepted invitations to and any projects that you have been assigned to. You are allowed to mentor for as many groups and projects at one time as you feel comfortable doing. Obviously, you want to be realistic with yourself about how much time you really have to devote to this. But I will say it really doesn't take a ton of time. In general, what we say is to think about it like you could mentor 2 groups at a total of about an hour a week, and that includes like every 3 days. So like if I were going to be posting for 3 days a week on 2 groups, I could expect it to take between 10 to 15 minutes per time that I sit down to post to my groups. So between 45 minutes and an hour per week for two groups. That might help you kind of gauge what your availability is. um, Ways that you can now you do we do not hand place our mentors. You will never be just plunked into a group without having any say so about it. What happens is the teachers log on, liaisons log on, they talk together about how many mentors they need, and then they go to a curated list that shows them who's available and willing to mentor groups like theirs. um, and then they select the ones that look like they'd be a good fit, and they send invitations out. Those invitations are sent to you by email. So in your email, it'll pop up on your end, and you can either accept or decline. Okay. It is completely okay to decline if you are feeling overwhelmed or like you just aren't really sure this is a good time. But the way to ensure that you get invitations in the first place is to go to your profile. So you want to do that first. A couple of things you definitely want to check, and I would recommend checking this yearly, if not every session. Make sure your email is correct. That is really key, because if it's not correct, the messages are not going to reach you, and nothing else we send you will reach you either. So please make sure that you have the correct email address in here. You also want to make sure that that your profile information is up to date. If you've just graduated and a postdoc, I mean, first of all, congratulations, that's amazing. Make sure that you reflect that here. You want them to see you for who you are, not who you were 2 years ago. Make sure your answers to these questions are still valid. And then where you really want to be focused is down here. So if it's the time of year when invitations are going out and you're not getting any, the first thing you want to check is, am I set to not available? Because when that curated list comes up to our teachers and liaisons that are looking for mentors, the first group that's not going to show up is anybody that said they're not available. Now, that said, if you are not available, please tell us. We would rather not send you invitations that are going to sit. We do not want to annoy you. So if it's definitely going to be a very busy session for you and you're not going to have time, it's completely okay to be honest and say, I'm not available. But if you are available, obviously we want you. We desperately want you to help us. So if you can go ahead and set yourself available, please do. But make sure that that's how it's set. Click save. The next thing is, what student levels are you willing to work with? Most of our teams are going to be high school or middle school. It does happen that a lot of times some sessions are very heavy middle school, some are very heavy high school. It just really depends on what's going on. But if you have indicated that you're not really willing to work with one of those two groups, that's going to have a real impact on how many invitations you get. So if you find the idea of working with middle school kind of uncomfortable, let me just reassure you, they're really fun and charming, and they're really much more willing to post a lot than the high schoolers are. High schoolers are more willing to get deeper, but I'm broadly generalizing, as a big group, they have a harder time warming up at first, so that can be a little bit of a challenge with them. Um, Preferred investigation themes. This is where you want to look at those mentor tip sheets for each of these. Make sure that you're comfortable with those. I will say that the big ones that tend to get selected a lot, we have a lot of power of sunlight. We have a lot of wonder of seeds. Pollen is very popular for the teachers that use it. Agronomy feeds the world is getting more popular. Um, and we do have some diehards that really love the various genetic ones. So really focus on those. um, but again, the more you can kind of review those and decide to go ahead and check the boxes to indicate that you're willing to mentor groups that are using those themes, the more invitations you're likely to get. Okay. We do have some teachers that will search by these particular, these subgroups of what students are interested in, or groups that students belong to. English language learners is very common, so if you're willing to work with them, that tends to help. Also, if you are bilingual and you are comfortable speaking and writing in another language, please make sure you tell us. We often get requests from teachers for support for their groups that are immigrant heavy, that really could use some support with somebody who speaks their language. So that's helpful too. This is where you're going to mark your capacity. Your capacity will never stop someone from sending you an invitation. So if you have said 3 groups and you're already mentoring 3 groups, you may still get other invitations. However, in that list that the teacher and the liaison are looking at, people who are full or fuller than full will be all the way at the bottom. So if they've invited you after you've already hit your capacity, it means they're probably desperate. So you might want to ask yourself, do I really feel like I could maybe do this? Maybe not. But be honest with yourself. You are always welcome to decline an invitation. In fact, we would so much rather you go ahead and hit the decline button than to just not answer at all. Because if you don't answer at all, we don't know if it didn't reach you or not. And that's information we need to have. So we would much prefer if you just decline an invitation that you don't feel you can handle. And that's it. If you make sure that you've got as many of these checked, as many of these checked, and that you are set available, you can pretty much expect to get a couple of invitations every session. If, however, it's not coming in fast enough for you and you want to volunteer, you can also do this. So I'm going to go back out to my dashboard. I'm going to come up here to galleries. You may have seen this before, but the current group seeking mentors page. This page, this is unfiltered, so you're going to see every group regardless of what age group they are, what they're studying, etc. This group is all people that are desperately looking for mentors because they're going to start soon, and so they're asking people to just step up and volunteer. So what you will do here is maybe you will check, like click on Murray, and you can kind of see what they're studying. You'll see a little bit about their outcomes. Some teachers are really good at filling this in a lot, some people less. But it'll tell you, what their theme is, when they're expecting to start, what their breaks look like, etc. You can kind of get a sense of what their expectations are. And then you can go back here, click the word join, and it'll pop up this screen where you can, if you want to put a message in, you can. If not, you would just leave it as it is, you can. But this also lets you see the teacher and the liaison if that's of interest to you. Click apply, and then they get a message that says that you're willing to volunteer. Now, just be aware, sometimes they do fill up. So if you ever get turned down, it's probably because they just got a lot of volunteers and people got there before you did. So try not to take that too personally. Once you have your groups and you've selected your project assigned to you, this is where you're going to interact with your kids. And one thing that's really handy is that when messages get posted, you will see an activity thing here so that you can kind of look at a glance and see which of your projects that you're mentoring are currently active and which ones maybe aren't. So you can click this link to go directly there, or you can click here to go to the group first. I'm going to go to the group first just so I can point out some important things to bear in mind. The forum is largely where you're going to be communicating with the teacher and the liaison. Forum messages get mailed out to everyone. You'll probably find that pretty quickly. So you'll want to make sure that you do introduce yourself. And this need to get away that is posted by the liaison in this case is a place where you can come and post a message if you know you need to step away for a time, so that the liaison knows to be ready and to step in and post messages for you. There's also a place for questions. There's a place where they'll put in updates. So all of these are really handy ways just to stay in touch with everyone that's in the team. Okay. One other thing to point out is that if you do click on projects from here, the only project you can access is the one that you're assigned to. So even if I click on these other projects, I can't get in. But if I click on mine, here's where I am. So in my case, again, this is an imaginary project. This doesn't actually, there's no actual students in this. You can see, here's the feed, so I can see exactly what's going on. You see that in my case, the liaison did post just to let the students know who they were and what their role was. And the most recent message that I posted an hour ago is at the top. Older messages are below. And when these info fields are not filled in, they have this blue field that explains what should go in each one. So that is how it's done. That's how you find it. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to click on Need Help. You can use this link to send me an email. If it's something that's really urgent, you can send me a text or even call me at this number. Just be aware that we operate out of St. Louis, Missouri, so I'm in Central U.S. time. So if you get me after hours, I may be a little slower, but I'll still try to get back to you, I promise. And if you want me to walk you through anything, I do this all the time. So please don't hesitate to take advantage of these. You can book one of these slots to talk to me, or just let me know that you want to meet with me and we can work out another time to meet. I'm usually pretty flexible about that. So, again, just cannot thank you enough for being here, for doing what you do, for giving your time to our students. I don't think many of our mentors realize just how important and special it is for the teachers and the students both. So, so again, let me know if there's anything else I can answer for you. And we thank you for being here. Have a great rest of your day.